If there's one thing God of War fans love, but one thing Kratos hates, at least currently, it's fighting gods. And recently, a game released clearly inspired by the adventures of Kratos, and that is Black Myth Wukong. What would happen if these two distinct universes collided, and Kratos was forced to battle the deities that reside in Wukong's realm? Well, today we're going to pit the two main characters against one another to determine who the most powerful god in modern gaming is. As I usually do in my God of War videos, I've turned to That Guy Named Kratos to help us with the God of War scaling. For both Wukong and Kratos, as well as the deities seen within their games, I will only be keeping the game continuity in mind. I won't be drawing from real-world stories, religions, or cosmologies, because if we take the real-world versions of these beings, then the scaling for each character gets completely out of control, and it's not really what we're going for, as I'm using specific versions found within their games, and not any real-world analogs. With all of that in mind, we will be taking a look at Kratos from the Greek saga, as well as the older veteran Kratos that we see during his adventures throughout the Norse realm. So with that being said, who would win between the God of War Kratos and the Monkey King Wukong?
Kratos' best scaling typically comes from the Norse games, specifically God of War 2018. At the beginning of the game, after we meet Freya and begin realm travel, Freya explains to Kratos and Atreus the scope of the Yggdrasil. Every strand of the tree transcends time and space. Now, on its own, this would easily get Kratos to universal and beyond levels, as Thor and Jormungandr have a feat during Ragnarok of splintering the Yggdrasil by merely clashing. Some people may say that this is hyperbole, but we also have other feats of characters like Ragnarok shattering the realm of Asgard and its branch with a single powered-up strike from his flaming sword. This is all relevant because Kratos is shown to be blatantly superior in terms of strength to Thor during their final battle. To further complement this feat of destroying the Yggdrasil, we have its scope actually broadened in the novel, where it's explained that a singular branch of the Yggdrasil stretches out infinitely, implying there would be an infinite number of strands from the tree transcending time and space. This would in turn push Kratos to levels above that of fourth dimensional, and depending on how you view transcending time and space, it could potentially even get him to fifth dimensional, but I do think that's stretching it a little bit. For Kratos' hacks, he has so many that we'll only be going over the relevant few for his matchup against Wukong. His two most important abilities against Wukong will come from the Blade of Olympus and the Claws of Hades. The Blade of Olympus has a very specific ability to strip a divine being of their divinity, or divine energy, by barely even nicking the character and absorbing it into the Blade of Olympus, further empowering Kratos. It is also capable of teleporting and sealing beings to certain realms, alongside creating massive AoE blasts that inflict fatal damage. Now, as for the Claws of Hades, upon latching onto an enemy, Kratos can reel the blades from his enemy's pierced body and rip out their soul, absorbing it and claiming their strength for himself. Many people think that it's debatable whether or not the claws actually give the user of the claws the enemy's strength directly, but Hades just outright states during his fight with Kratos that if he were to absorb Kratos' soul, it would just make him stronger. But even if Kratos didn't obtain Wukong's strength from the claws, he'd still be able to summon a duplicate of Wukong's soul, which has the main abilities and techniques of the original. There are even more abilities Kratos could potentially use, such as the Amulet of Fazir from the 2018 game that basically lets him create realm shifts, and these temporarily slow down his enemies' movements. Or he could even use the Eyes of Truth, which let Kratos dispel illusions and duplicates that his enemies cast, or even negate magic entirely with Zeus's lightning blasts. We really could go overkill with Kratos' abilities, but these are probably the most important and will serve as his best tools for dealing with Wukong.
So Wukong, the great sage of peerless renown, dies in the opening battle of the game, but is eventually reborn through the Destined One as a newer, better version of his previous incarnation. In that opening battle, we see Wukong against the Celestial Court. We see the deities decimate entire mountains, but that is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the power levels of this pantheon of gods. The Black Long Dragon could summon storms to flood entire lands. The Plantain Fan has the power to squelch flames spanning 80,000 miles, and literal mountain deities reside within the realm. However, the power of the gods is far beyond this. Many are literal stars or constellations themselves, wielding the power of multiple solar systems within their physical forms, and they descend from the heavens to do battle with their enemies. Wukong was able to summon one of these constellations to do his bidding, and since we know Wukong was considered peerless at his height, he would obviously be more powerful than these solar system controlling deities. Additionally, Wukong can literally shift the stars on their course, so this is pretty consistent. The power of Wukong's realm is pushed even further by the Keeper of Flaming Mountains, who controls yin and yang, as well as the yin-yang fish.
From yin and yang, 5 elements emerge. Each nature inherits its unique creation. Each form embodies a universe.
Interpreting this statement leads me to believe that the power level of yin and yang should be multiversal at bare minimum. The sourceless water that the Keeper wields comes from Tushita, which is located in the highest of the 33 heavens as well. The fish who swims within this water is stated to have boundless power, something I would consider to be infinite in this case, as the universe itself is considered to be infinite or boundless. I think this would be consistent with the universal, or in Wukong's case, multiversal level power. Considering the power of the 5 elements should be multiversal, which comes from yin and yang, which the Keeper of the Flaming Mountains controls within the game's universe, and who Wukong is clearly above. This is even more evident when considering that one of the lesser weapons that Wukong has access to, the Rat Sage Staff, can summon winds powerful enough to nearly split the infinite universe apart. As for skills and abilities, Wukong is a master martial artist who has perfected many fighting styles, but favors fighting with his Jingubong staff, which can extend in size, shrink, or even grow wider to fit Wukong's unpredictable fighting style. Being his most powerful weapon, it should easily scale above the other weapons we mentioned that could split apart the universe. Against even the most powerful beings, just a light tap from the Jingubong is fatal, while a small touch of the staff cracks the skin. But Wukong is more than just martial arts. He can use the control spell Immobilize, and with a simple gesture can bind his enemy in place for a time. He can cast Ring of Fire, which protects him from the cold, something that would be very useful against the Leviathan Axe. While within his circle of protection, he can heal wounds and even recover his stamina. With Cloud Step, he can turn invisible while leaving behind a decoy. Rock Solid allows him to turn into a stone version of himself that deflects attacks. Wukong can also cast a duplication spell, creating multiple clones of himself that are equal in strength, and can also cast all of the magic spells that we just mentioned. Wukong can also transform into various beings he's defeated on his journey, including the Rock Guai, which grants him immunity to electricity, poison, fire, and cold. He can also briefly transform into other beings for quick attacks after he's absorbed their souls. If all else fails, Wukong can forego casting spells to amplify his physical stats far beyond what he is typically capable of using Spellbinder. So with the power scaling and abilities all laid out, who wins between the God of War and the Monkey King? A younger Kratos equipped with the artifacts of Greece, as well as being powered by Greek magic, would fare pretty well. As we mentioned previously, he has a complete stockpile of counters ready and waiting for any of Wukong's abilities. It's really a matchup stacked in the favor of Kratos, and one he should win easily. But what about the older, more seasoned Kratos, whose powerful Greek artifacts had been taken from him, save for his Blades of Chaos? Each has a plethora of abilities they can call upon to try and push the battle in their favor. Wukong can turn invisible, but Kratos can see through that with the help of Mimir. Kratos has access to devastating elemental attacks through the Leviathan Axe and his Blades of Chaos. However, Wukong has resistance to these effects. I think each combatant's various abilities are pretty evenly matched, and it would be difficult for one to get the advantage over the other should their strength match each other one-to-one. Because after all, both fighters have multiversal levels of attack power. However, one is far higher far more consistently. at least within their video game universes. As we detailed, the strands of the Yggdrasil being infinite in number and being infinite in size would make Kratos far and away more powerful than Wukong. Unless we completely ignore the drastic power gap between both characters, Kratos should be vastly stronger and for the most part would have the ability to resist or overpower anything Wukong could really throw at him. As seen in battles against the most powerful enemies in Black Myth Wukong, the strongest of them resist or completely ignore immobilization, and their attacks completely shatter rock solid in one hit, leaving Wukong stunned. Wukong himself has shown hardly any resistance to anything outside of the four main elements and would most likely struggle to counter a lot of Kratos' abilities like the Bifrost manipulation, realm shift, or even the ability to steal souls with the Berserker hilt. At best, Wukong could only attempt to overwhelm him with the pluck of many, or pray that the immobilization spell works and restrains Kratos long enough to damage him. But like we mentioned, this likely isn't a winning strategy, either due to their power levels being vastly different, or Kratos just completely resisting the spell in the first place. If their strength and speed were equalized, then there would be a debate to be had. Could Wukong overwhelm Kratos with his clones? Could Kratos' weapon mastery match the martial arts prowess of the Monkey King? In an equal stats scenario, I think I probably give Wukong a slight edge due to his ability to manifest multiple clones of himself that should be equal to his strength and are able to cast all the spells Wukong's main body can muster. With the flexibility of Wukong's arsenal and his ability to fall back into his circle of protection should there be a close call, it would be hard for Kratos to keep up even with his godly stamina. But what do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments. Who do you think would win between these two powerful deities? Again, we're talking about the video game universes specifically. We want to hear what you guys have to say. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. It does really help us out. And remember the motto, it's Kratos versus Wukong over everything. And I'll see you guys next time.